This document has the power to enthuse both Donald Trump supporters and critics in equal measure, it seems. But that idea from the White House that this is the best day since Donald Trump was elected, well, they're still pushing that. They're still pushing total exoneration. For those who don't believe that, I mean, it didn't fly then and it doesn't fly now. This is a 448-page document, a beast of a document. We only got it 3 hours ago. We've been waiting for it for 2 years, but it is all laid bare there in black and white with some parts redacted. So what have we learned? Well, on collusion, we already knew that the report would find that there was no evidence of direct collusion between Trump team associates and Russian government officials, but it did say there were multiple contacts between those two parties, so not criminal, but pretty unedifying when you see it in black and white. And on obstruction, that's where most of the interesting detail we're getting is here. It is instance after instance described by Robert Mueller of where Donald Trump or associates could have potentially obstructed the investigation, hijack it, try to control it at different parts in its journey, even try and get rid of Robert Mueller himself. So on this matter, President Trump is not, as he likes to say, totally exonerated. Rather, the report says if we had the confidence after a thorough investigation of the facts that the president clearly did not commit obstruction of justice, we would so state. However, we are unable to reach that judgment. Now, many pages remain redacted. There is a lot we don't know. Here's what we do.
The Justice Department has appointed special counsel.
Season after season, indictment after indictment.
Friday's indictment charged 13 Russian nationals.
It's hung heavy in the air for almost an entire presidency.
There was no collusion, there was no obstruction, everybody knows it.
23 months, more than 2,000 subpoenas.
It's the first Trump campaign advisor to be arrested.
500 search warrants. Today, the Mueller report, redacted but released.
I can tell you I have it. It says report on the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election.
As an entire nation began speed reading, the president, holding an event for veterans, gave his quick-fire verdict.
I'm having a good day, too. It was called No Collusion, No Obstruction. This hoax that should never happen to another president again.
But what did he think back in May 2017 when then Attorney General Jeff Sessions told him a special counsel had been appointed? The report cites as submitted evidence a note from one aide saying he slumped back in his chair and said, "Oh my God, this is terrible. This is the end of my presidency. I'm..." The following month, we learn President Trump told his White House counsel Don McGahn to remove Mueller. McGahn did not carry out the direction, however, deciding that he would resign rather than trigger what he regarded as a potential Saturday night massacre. A Watergate reference. Richard Nixon eventually managed to get the independent prosecutor investigating him fired, but as we know, that didn't end well. One man President Trump did fire, FBI Director James Comey. The report concludes the president had the authority to remove him, but also that there's substantial evidence he did so because of Mr. Comey's unwillingness to publicly state the president was not personally under investigation. In all, Mueller detailed 10 episodes involving actions by the president that might have constituted obstruction, but the evidence we obtained about the president's actions and intent presents difficult issues that prevent us from conclusively determining that no criminal conduct occurred. Accordingly, while this report does not conclude that the president committed a crime, it also does not exonerate him. The Attorney General, Bill Barr, who held a press conference 2 hours before the report was even released, concluded he had non-corrupt motives and no case for obstruction.
Don't you think it creates an appearance of impropriety for you to come out and sort of what appears to be sort of spinning the report before the public gets a chance to read it?
He reminded the room he didn't have to release the Mueller report publicly. He chose to do so.
Ma'am, was that the report? Was that the Mueller report, ma'am?
Was that the Mueller report?
Lawmakers on Capitol Hill received their much-anticipated copies on CDs. Everyone in Washington may be talking about it, but today no one has heard the voice of Robert Mueller. Through the whole process, he's remained quiet, save for the odd commencement address early on.
As the saying goes, if you have integrity, nothing else matters. And if you do not have integrity, nothing else matters.
Now, the Democrat-controlled House Judiciary Committee has sent a letter to Special Counsel Mueller to testify himself, under oath on the Hill, by the end of next month. Until then, in the days and weeks ahead, Details will be pored over, connections made, redactions held up to the light.
The president is no longer in the legal crosshairs.
They didn't exonerate him because the evidence didn't suggest he should be exonerated.
Fights over what the document does and doesn't mean will carry on for far longer, well into the 2020 election campaign. Yes, this is a moment, a big one at that, but it is by no means the season finale of Donald Trump's reality drama, no matter what pre-prepared memes he tweets.
Danny Isdale in Washington. Joining us now from Washington, D.C. is Alice Butler-Short. She's the founder and president of Virginia Women for Trump, and Max Bergman, director of the Moscow Project, which investigates President Trump's alleged links with Russia. It's very interesting, given that this report does not, in fact, actually convict the president in any form, although he's not exonerated, Alice Butler-Short. One wonders why he needed to try and fire Mr. Mueller twice during the investigation.
Well, what I'm hearing from the lead-in here, again, is more of the same. More fake news, more of the twisting of words and twisting of facts and creating a story which does not exist. There was no collusion and there was no obstruction, period. So that is where I stand, and I haven't read the complete report, but if there was any criminal activity or any reason beyond this report to charge the president with anything, it would have been done. There was no collusion, there was no obstruction of justice, and the president can now move on and do his work for the American people, as he has been doing for the past 2 years.
So in actual fact, Mr. Mueller has done him a great favor. One wonders why he tried to get rid of him.
Mr. Mueller did his job. Other people did their job. The end result is no collusion, no obstruction of justice, and that is all we need to deal with today. This president is a strong man. He has been through 2 years of people trying to take him down, trying to take down a duly elected president, which was unprecedented, and he has been able to continue to work for the American people, and those of us who know him, who know the truth, who are not into fake news, know that, and we are as happy as he is today.
Well, now, Max Bergman, it's interesting. I mean, he certainly discovers that there is plenty of activity between the Russians and the election campaign, though he doesn't identify exactly who was doing what. He doesn't, though, find that the president had any hand in those, involvements.
Well, I'm not sure I entirely agree with that. No, I think your previous guest is just ignoring what's in the report. What's in the report, in fact, does show collusion. What Mueller decided is that it didn't amount to a charge of conspiracy. It's akin to identifying a mafia organization and saying, well, there's a lot of behavior here, but not quite being able to bring the legal charge of conspiracy. But what Mueller identified throughout the hundreds of pages in the report are contacts, meetings with Russian and Kremlin-linked associates with WikiLeaks. The Trump campaign, it is clear, knew that Russian intelligence hacked and stole this information and provided it to WikiLeaks. And they actively sought out to connect with WikiLeaks. That, to me, is collusion. And on obstruction, what your previous guest notes is that Mueller didn't bring criminal charges. Well, Mueller is not allowed to bring criminal charges according to the Department of Justice. That is the job of Congress, to assess whether the president's conduct amounts to behavior that needs to be removed. And so Mueller was basically following the report from Jaworski in 1974 in Watergate, laying out the facts, and it's going to be up to Congress to make that determination.
Well, Alice Butler-Short, you were trying to come in there.
Yes, I was trying to say I never said he didn't bring criminal charges. I'm perfectly aware of the fact that it's not up to him to bring charges. It's only up to him to give the report, and that's what he did. And there is no evidence in the report that the president is guilty of anything. And I think we should move on from there to real news instead of continuing the fake news that we've had to put up with for the past 2 years. But I'm perfectly aware that it will start now with false allegations of obstruction of justice, and it will continue to play out like that because the media, or at least much of the media, is not interested in the
there is a
truth.
rather crucial element of the report from Mr. Mueller, which is that he finds he cannot, I quote, I cannot exonerate the president. He cannot be exonerated.
That is not true. It is not up to Mueller to exonerate him. It is simply up to Mueller to present the report. There is no evidence in the report that the president should be charged by anyone for anything. We are into spin again. We are into fake news again, and you will probably continue that for the next 2 years, and probably for 6, because the president is going to have an unprecedented landslide in 2020.
Right, okay.
And partly because the American people have seen through all of this collusion between the Obama and the Clintons.
Right, okay. Max Bergman, it does seem quite extraordinary. I mean, in any other democracy, if it was proved that the Russians had been messing about with the democratic processes of a Western democracy, there would be all hell to pay. Why isn't there in America?
Well, I think there might be. This is the most shocking political scandal of all time. Your previous guest is very good at adhering to the White House talking points. But what is clear is that that Mueller laid out facts that are incredibly damning of the president. And what we have here is that I think if this report came out 2 years ago, the reaction would be complete shock and the need to move to impeachment right away. We have to remember with Watergate, it wasn't until the very end of the process in which the country sort of demanded that Nixon be removed. Now, the country already believes that the president committed crimes. That is already before this report comes out. I think that is going to prompt Democrats to conduct significant hearings, to call Robert Mueller, and to really investigate this. And if it merits impeachment, then they should move in that direction.
The facts are he did not find presidential collusion with the Russians, and he has not actually found him guilty of any crime. And that surely closes the book.
No, so what I would say... No, the fact is that he didn't charge a conspiracy. What he has found is a number of contacts that from the Trump campaign with the Russians that could amount to collusion, which is not a legal term. So the question, I think, that is before Congress is not simply whether the president broke laws, which I think he did in the case of obstruction of justice, but whether the conduct is not befitting the president of the United States.
Right. Let's leave it at that point. Let's leave it at that point. And let me just ask you finally, we haven't got much time, Alice Butler-Short, but you are relaxed,
just very quickly, I would like to say...
You're very relaxed then as to what will transpire when Mr. Mueller goes before Congress in a month's time.
Absolutely. And I would like to say I have no White House talking points. I do not represent the president here today. I represent myself, and I represent hundreds of thousands of women from all over the United States who knew before this report came out, just like the president knew, that there was no collusion and there is no obstruction of justice. And we are very, very glad that we have a strong man who has been able to stand up to all of this.
On that note, Alice, I'm sorry to interrupt, but thank you very much indeed. We're out of time, but thank you very much for joining us, both of you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.